Hey folks, yesterday I was going through some pictures on my computer and I stumbled across a few of them from my trips to Australia. And I thought that would make an interesting video to talk about what I found unusual, fascinating, interesting about Australia. Folks, now from 2014 to 2016, I spent a total of 5 weeks in Australia, just two different trips, but one for 2 weeks, one for 3 weeks. It's a work trip, but I did manage to take in a little bit of the culture and some of the differences between, living here in Indiana in the Midwest of, right in, between the coast. Of New York and LA, right in the middle of the country, the heart of the country. My experiences going to Australia, I thought it would be interesting for you. And I'm going to put a couple pictures up here, to help tell my story. These are in no particular order, but 7 different topics I'll cover here in just a few minutes. Number one, 42 hours of travel to get to Perth, Australia, in 42 hours. The longest flight was 16 hours. One of the flights I took was from Dallas to Sydney, direct, 16 hours, and then I still had another 4-hour flight across the country there in a 15-hour time zone. Just an absolute killer. I got used to Europe time zones with 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours difference. United States 1 and 2 hours difference. But 15 is a freaking killer. Took me about 3 days to recover from that. The landscape, there's a few large cities like Perth and Sydney, Brisbane, but most of the country is, most of the population is along the coast. It's a lot of little small towns, 5, 10,000 people. You're just driving through all these little bitty towns if you get out of the big city. But 26 million people, okay? And this is in 2020, right at 70 million sheep. So you see sheep everywhere. When you're driving around, you just flocks and flocks of sheep everywhere. There's 3 sheep for every person that is on the continent of Australia. 8 million cattle. So, sheep is just 10x the livestock over there, and they're just everywhere, and you can eat sheep, mutton, anytime you want. It's a lot like rural United States, and when I say rural, I like the Midwest, Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois, just spread out little villages. It's very similar in one shockingly different landscape. It's a huge country. People will say, hey, you went to Australia. Did you go see the Great Barrier Reef? Or did you go see Ayers Rock? Or did you go, hey folks, these things it's like the United States. If you're in California, you don't ask somebody if they went to New York. I spent most of my time in Western Australia, in the Perth area, but sometime in the southern east side, we had a plant that I went to in Portland. But it's a huge country. You can't see it all. Unless you're going to spend 2 months there, you can't see it all. Kind of like the United States. You don't visit the United States. You visit California, visit Florida. You don't go to the United States. One of my great memories of Australia, and the one I like talking about the most, is driving. One of the things that I think is just fascinating is you go to another country and they just give you a freaking car in the airport. And when you're in Australia, it's like the UK. You're driving on the left side of the road and your steering wheel is on the right side of the car. So you got things backwards from what I'm used to. And, I got pretty good at driving on the other side of the road. You get used to having, when you're driving in the U.S., you kind of got a blind spot to your left. You got this bar on your windshield where when you're on the right side of the car, that's the open side, which it sounds trivial, but it's a big deal. You always feel like you're on the wrong side of the car. But, I got really used to driving and staying in my lane and turning and doing all those things. But the darn turn signal, I'm used to the turn signal being here with my left hand, down to turn left, up to turn right. It's on the opposite side. So every time I wanted to turn, I turned on my windshield wipers, and they teased me nonstop about this because I enjoy driving, especially when I was going out with other people. As they say, "Gosh, Joe, I don't know what to do in the United States, but we don't signal a turn with our windshield wipers." I never got used to that. Roundabouts. There are freaking roundabouts everywhere. They're starting to pop up in the United States, but everywhere. They don't have four-way stops. I actually had some visitors come to Indiana to tour our plant, and they wanted me to stop and take their picture by a four-way stop because they've never seen one before. Four-way stop sign. How do you know who goes? Do arguments break out? They just couldn't understand the four-way stop. Roundabouts, you're taking, 10 a day, driving back and forth to work. Hey, one of the big negatives, man, I've never seen anything like this in my life, is I was in at this time, if you're an Australian, you may pick on me for this, but I think it was late November, early December, fly season in Western Australia. And I'm telling you, flies were everywhere. And I got to have a picture right here of a guy. I mean, it was nothing to have 30 or 40 flies on your person, on your back, on your chest, crawling around your face, trying to get in your nose, trying to get in your ears. During this 2-week time period, it's just fly season. They just drive you insane. One of the jokes over there is that what's the Western Australia salute? It's like this, and that's swatting flies. And a lot of the people some of the natives, I'll say the Australian folks, they wouldn't swat the flies because if you swatted the flies, they buzzed around. Just let them sit on you, and that's a picture that I got. Is 30 flies in this guy's back here. But apparently, with all the sheep and all the livestock that they have over there, they have all this dung over there, and the flies nest in that and then grow out of that. And until the dung beetles come up out of the ground and eat all the dung, there's this 2-3 week period of time where flies are just freaking everywhere. And I'm telling you, it is very annoying. It's not a nuisance. It's something like, I remember telling Larry, a guy I was with, is like, my wife would not get off the plane. It's that bad during this couple week period. So if you travel Australia, especially Western Australia, check when fly season is. It's at end of November, beginning of December. Hey, can't talk about Australia without kangaroos. Kangaroos are in Australia are like deer to us here in the United States. You see them pretty regularly in fields. It's not that unusual to see them along highways, dead along highways. But deer, they're pretty big. I remember one experience, I was looking for an emu. It's kind of an ostrich looking thing. We were in this park running around chasing emus around. And I turned a corner, and there was this like 6-7 foot kangaroo looking me right in the eyes. And they are freaking big. And what you don't realize about them is their hind feet. They got like 2 or 3 inch toenails or nails, where if you surprise them, they rear up on their tail and hit you with those tines on their back feet and scrape you down. I mean, serious damage. They're nothing to fool around with. But that was my worst experience. I was probably 6-8 feet from this kangaroo that I was looking right in the eyes, and we both startled each other as I was looking for emus. I did not see any koala bears or wombats in the wild. We did see them in a small town zoo we went to, saw them there. They don't, there's not a whole lot of them, and they kind of hide and sleep and kind of lazy all the time. So they're kind of hard to see, but kangaroo everywhere. Not hard to see. Saw a lot of magpies, which are like a crow kind of thing. We got them in the United States, but they were everywhere there, screaming like crazy, just like a crow, just making all kinds of noise, black and white. And there were a lot of parakeets were in the trees. So very common to see parakeets and magpies everywhere. Another thing of note, shopping and dining. One of the town I was in, a small town, Portland, I maybe 5,000-6,000 people in it. Everything closed at 5 p.m. I mean, at 5 p.m., all the restaurants, everything closed. The plant I was visiting, they actually had to call a restaurant and say, hey, the Americans are in town. Can you keep your restaurant open so they have something to eat? So they kept the restaurant open for us. It's a lot of these small towns, very mom and pop shop oriented. And so, they value their family time. And so, hey, they shut things down, rolled the streets at 5 p.m. There's not a Walmart in the country, at least when I was over there. I didn't see one, and I was told there were none. So, hey, verify that. But even if there was Kmart's there. Maybe they shut down some now too, but big Kmart's. But they restricted the hours of these shopping centers to match what mom and pop stores could be, to not disadvantage the mom and pop operations by these big, box stores that are open 24/7. They just, I thought it was something pretty cool they did to protect, Main Street. The food was very familiar, nothing unusual about that. Quantities were same, quality was the same, a little bit different, but it wasn't shocking or anything like that. My last category is people. I thought the people were happy, full of life. They were characters. Reminded me of the Midwest. They were very helpful, very welcoming, very outgoing. They loved seeing Americans there. Every place I went, I felt like, hey, man, I would instantly turn into the center of attention because, hey, you're American. Talk to me. Let me learn about your culture. I thought they were just fascinated with this. One experience I had, we were going from a town in Western Australia, going from Mandurah to Perth on a train. It was like an hour and a half train ride. And my buddy that was traveling with me, Larry, and we were in this rail car all by ourselves. Just rail car, passenger train, all by ourselves. We started talking, and I'm telling you, within 15 minutes, there were 20, 30 people in the car, mainly young people, just around us asking us questions. What's it like in the United States? Hey, I'd love to, some of the funnier comments, I'd love to come to the United States, but, I really wouldn't want to drive there because I'm afraid of a gunfight breaking out. They think everybody in the U.S. has got like 20 guns, and anybody gets aggravated with somebody else, you break out in a gunfight. You really, and this is sad, and if you're from Australia or non-U.S., listen to this. You're getting your view of the U.S. from CNN, and CNN is horrible. CNN, exaggerates stories, increases the drama in stories. They look at 1% of the population and broadcast that like that's everybody in the population. CNN does not represent, I would say, 0.1% of the people that live in the United States. So please, look for alternative sources of what it's like to be an American other than CNN. CNN is horrible. I haven't watched CNN in years because it's just lies, manipulation. It's just horrible. So they talk about guns, all the time, and everybody's killing everybody. Well, not in my town. Another thing that was, on the train ride, when I said all these people were around us, they asked me about celebrities. How many celebrities have I met? Well, I've met none. I don't live in New York City or LA or Miami, so everything you see on TV and from Hollywood makes it look like this is American life. Well, American life, here in the middle, it's not like that at all. Very similar to their life of, good people, full of life, happy, welcoming, good friends. So very much enjoyed my trips to Australia. I'd encourage you to go. It's a long way to get there. But just a very interesting culture. I'm proud that, or very delighted that my career brought me there. All expenses paid, right? Except for some souvenirs I bought. So, hey, way off topic here, I know, but I thought this may be interesting for a few of you folks. This is Joe out.